It's almost midnight by the time I'm recording this, so sorry for the voice. Welcome back to another Ibispaint video. Today we'll be getting a bit technical. We're diving into the features and settings I usually use in Ibispaint. But first, I have a confession. I have 2 children. No, you're not the father, don't worry. When an artist says they have kids, there's a very high chance they're talking about their original characters or OCs. Unless of course they have an actual offspring. Anyway, I'm drawing my OCs for today's video. This is Kaede and his older sister Ruka. One of my viewers back in the day named my male child Kaede because he looks like Kaede Rukawa from Slam Dunk. And you can already guess where the name Ruka came from. And yes, I gave birth to the little brother first. Okay, before we continue the sketch, I want to talk about canvas size. Never mind all the questionable drawings in my gallery, focus on the canvas size. I normally use 3000 by 3000, but since I'm drawing landscape today, I will shorten the height a little bit. 3000 by 3000 is quite big, so if you're drawing on your phone, try using 1000 by 1000 instead. Canvases below 1000 pixels are usually pixelated, so I recommend at least 1000. To change the canvas size, you can use the canvas function in the toolbar and adjust it manually. For references, Ibispaint has a reference window feature to place your references. You can resize it to your liking and place it wherever you see fit. For today's reference, we're using this picture of Yeji and Yuna in their IC era. I just think the pose look adorable with the popsicles and all. Before we get into the sketch, yes, I know there are quite some steps before I actually sketch. I'm going to draw the silhouette. This is to visualize the big picture of the drawing. The silhouette doesn't have to be neat and tidy. This only serves as the base for our sketch. I'm using a different color to draw Ruka's silhouette so I don't confuse it with her brothers. It's also a good idea to use different layers when drawing multiple characters. Next, I'm drawing a rough sketch on top of the silhouette. At this stage, I always turn the background color to gray so it doesn't burn my eyes. I also use the multiply layer for the rough sketch so the color's darker. I only use a circle and a cross as the guidelines, but lately I've added an oval to indicate the side of the head. Don't worry about the details, this is only a rough sketch. I'm actually kinda nervous making this video because you know I don't draw a lot of girls, right? I mean, I did quite alright drawing Ruka in this artwork, but let's see if my brain and my right hand can replicate this look. Now we're moving on to the clean sketch. This is where we start to worry about the details and the cleanliness. I'm also using another multiply layer for this, which is optional, by the way. I just do this out of habit. At first, I wanted to give Kaede an older brother, but as I'm thinking about their dynamics and the chemistry, I keep asking myself, do I really want another guy as my digital offspring? And so I decided it would be better to give him an older sister instead. You can read more about the siblings on my page in Unveil. Haven't written much though, and oh my god, why did I make Kaede very in need of holy water? By the way, if my voice sounds more cheerful than before, it's because I recorded this on a different day, in the afternoon, after my coffee, and also because I am excited to tell you about Unveil. Unveil is a platform for creatives such as artists and writers to share their original work. You can showcase your original characters, world building, writings, lore dumping. It's basically a paradise for your OCs. There are over 200,000 creatives for you to connect with, so you won't feel lonely here. Also, are you sick and tired of AI slobs showing on your FYP and AI bros worshipping them like messiah? Well, not in Unveil, because Unveil is 100% AI-free community. Here it's all creative people, not lobotomized generators. Anyway, let's try it out ourselves. This is interesting. You can randomize a name if you haven't named your OC yet, like Bridgerton or Emmy Sandwich. Okay, that's an interesting name. Okay, let's add Kaede in there. He is currently very comfortable with his shaved armpit. And let's write a description. He is 20 years old, he's a university student, he likes to dress up in modern gothic or edgy clothes with his older sister. Is modern gothic edgy? Anyway, that's all I got on Kaede. I will try to think of something else later. I've also added Ruka, looking confident in pink, and this is very interesting. They have this question of the day thing that changes every day, By the time I record this clip, I got what would your OC do if they woke up in their enemy's body? Well, that's an interesting question. Okay, let's go with Kaede's answer first. I'm pretty sure my boy would cry. I don't have any enemy for him yet, but I'm confident he would cry in this scenario. Now Ruka though, she won't go down without a fight. She would tear her enemy apart, so she will, without a doubt, draw wee wee on their face and show them who's boss. Well, this is fun. You can discover more about your OCs through these questions, so this is great for whenever you feel stuck in designing their personality and lore and backstories. Speaking of backstories, in the character creation tab, you can add backstories and lore on your characters and also character traits, which is super detailed. There are things like hobbies, age, birthday, astrological sign, species, gender, orientation, occupation, even MBTI type. Good lord, I can see myself spending hours filling this out for Kaede and Ruka. There is also the worlds tab, which I think is for world building. Like, where do your OCs live, in what timeline, in what setting, is it medieval or cyberpunk, or is it a world like ours, you know, things like that. I don't have a world for Kaede and Ruka yet, other than the fact that they live in a modern world like ours, so I'm not gonna fill this out now, but you can create multiple worlds here. So if you have tons of OCs, you can organize them based on their respective worlds. In the Explore tab, you can discover other creators' worlds and even collab and roleplay with your OCs in it. You can also favorite, comment, and follow users that you like, just like in a social media platform. I told you this is like a heaven for OCs and their creators. But even if you don't have any OCs yet, just come hang out, explore others' work, and maybe you'll get inspired. Check out Unveil, link in the description, and thank you so much Unveil for sponsoring this video. I oversimplify the facial features and anatomy in the clean sketch stage. That's why my sketches look more anime than the end result. I prefer this method since it's easier to render. By the way, some of you are asking for a hand tutorial, so let me cover it briefly in this video. In a multiply layer with a low opacity brush, draw a pentagon. The shortest side is for the thumb. Now draw a silhouette for the fingers. The four fingers have 3 segments, while the thumb only has 2. The reason we're using multiply and low opacity brush is to see the joints clearly. I will also indicate the palm. Then we can sketch the hand using this guideline. This is by far the simplest method I've tried. You can also trace your reference for easier guidelines, but I suggest practicing drawing it by yourself. Now we're moving on to Ruka's clean sketch. One thing I struggled with when drawing Ruka, aside from the fact that I suck at drawing girls, is to make sure her face looks somewhat like Kaede, but not that similar. You know what I mean? I don't want her to be a copy of Kaede because she's not his twin. She's older by 5 years. I just want their faces to look somewhat similar. I'm using the silhouette method for her hands as well, with multiply layer and low opacity brush. You can use different layers and colors if the fingers are overlapping. It would be easier to visualize, but I think it looks fine like this. And then we sketch the hand. I gave Ruka longer fingers and sharper nails to support her sharp visual. Then we add in the popsicles. Rectangular popsicles are so adorable, they look really unique, and it kinda looks like jello, isn't it? And we are done with the clean sketch. Hopefully it won't be a nightmare to render, but let's not get our hopes up, shall we? Now I wanna talk a bit about the bucket tool for base color. I never change any settings, but there's something called gap recognition. And when you turn it on, the color it lets out is more controlled. It's not as much. There's also a lasso-like tool, but I don't think it works in my sketch because it's kinda rough and messy. For me, it's quicker to use the bucket tool without the gap recognition. It covers larger areas. I mean, granted, the colors tend to bleed, but I can just quickly close the gaps with a solid brush first. And that's all on the base color. Nothing too interesting. Now we can move on to the shading. I changed the background color and merged all the layers before I shade. Actually, I separated Kaede and Ruka's layers to avoid irreversible mistakes. Anyway, I'm using multiply layer and an airbrush to apply soft shadows to the skin and clothes. For the hair, however, I'm using flat watercolor opaque 2 because it has a soft watercolor texture. Moving on to the hard shadows, which I struggled with here because the reference doesn't have a clear shadow. I just picked this because the pose is adorable. We'll be using a lot of midtones though. They are lighter shadows in between the base color and dark shadows. In the reference, we can see the midtones on the sides of the nose and also the forehead. And the cheeks also have midtones even though it's very faint. Midtones are important to add dimension and volume to your drawing, especially for a semi-realistic look. Try to study your references. Differentiate the base color, dark shadows, and midtones. This doesn't just apply to the skin, by the way, but also hair, clothes, and other things you're drawing. Now we're rendering or painting over the sketch. I always start with the nose, but it's just out of habit. It doesn't really matter where you start. The important thing is to keep your drawing from blurring as you render. I see that this is something a lot of my viewers are struggling with, and as in my other videos, my advice is don't use the smudge tool, but use the midtones instead. Swipe the shadow color on top of the sketch or line art, then use the resulting color to blend. This method will keep your painting from blurring and retain all the lovely textures. When rendering the face, I avoid drawing features that's gonna make my drawing unattractive, such as the smile lines. I mean, don't get me wrong, smile lines are great in real photographs, but in my drawing, it ages my character at least 10 years. But I wanna practice drawing smile lines in a natural, non-aging way, because back then, I used to avoid drawing the philtrum because it elongates the gap between the nose and the mouth for some reason, but now I can draw it naturally. Anyway, lately I've been drawing full circles for the iris. I made another layer for this so it's easier to paint and fix the mistakes. Okay, let's not hyper focus on the little brother and move on to the big sister before I lose all my energy and motivation. A quick fix when the painting gets blurred during rendering is to draw line art with a slightly lighter color than the sketch. This is what I do as a final touch-up or when I'm too lazy to build the shadows gradually to bring back the definition. By the way, I'm drawing Ruka's full face first before covering it with the popsicles, just in case I wanna move her hand around. Also, the popsicle is a bit transparent, so her mouth should be slightly visible. I'm using the same method to draw Ruka's eyes. Yes, both siblings' eyes are blue and pink, but the position is mirrored. It's not because they have heterochromia, it's just contact lenses for aesthetic purposes. One of the eyes looks a little weird, so I'm duplicating it and trying to rotate and resize to see if it's a placement problem. Sometimes using liquify doesn't help, and when that happens, always duplicate the part that it's fixing so it doesn't affect the other facial features. Let's move on to the hair rendering. I'm not gonna talk about it in much detail for today, so if you wanna see just the hair rendering, you can... But I haven't made a dedicated video about it actually. I mean, I have made videos trying out other artists' hair tutorials, but not my own method because my method is shit. It changes every time I draw. It's like my right hand has selective amnesia or something. One thing I always remember is to shade the hair like a ball because the head is round like a ball, a hairy freaking ball. Second thing to be consistent about is the highlights. The further the area is from the light source, the less highlight it gets. I also try to keep my highlights in one curved line, maybe kind of like this. Well, mine is not curved, is it? But whatever. Well, not whatever, I should fix it, but whatever. Third thing to remember is to use full opacity brush because hair can get blurred just like that when you look away for a second. Use a really dark color to redraw the lost details. I don't recommend using pure black though because it's too dark unless your character has black hair. I'm adding more details to Ruka's hair, which is kind of messy because she has a wolf cut type of hairstyle, and my hairdresser said it is a messy hairstyle. No, I'm not making things up to cover up my incompetence. Anyway, I'm coloring the inside of her hair with light blue to reflect the background and also for stylization. limitation. Kaede's hair is easier to paint because he has a straight, bowl-cut hair. I think I knew my limitation when designing Kaede, but somehow gets baseless confidence in designing his sister. By the way, I decided to use the tetradic color combination. Yes, I just decided the color combination this late into the drawing. At first, I want to use the analogous combination, which is 3 to 4 colors next to each other in the color wheel, but I think it would be fun to add green and yellow shades from the tetradic color combination. Not all colors need to be dominant, by the way. For example, I mainly use blue and pink, while the green and yellow are for the additional details like the popsicles and the siblings' nail polish. I wanted Kaede and Ruka's colors to mirror each other. Like, Kaede is holding a green popsicle, so he has yellow nail polish, and vice versa. There are a lot of fun experiments you can do when you have 2 kids. Cool! I've been practicing painting metals to draw accessories like piercings and jewelry. One thing I noticed is they tend to have very little midtones, so I usually just added hard shadows and lighting. Kaede was supposed to be half robot back when I first made him, and these patches are supposed to light up like his eyes, but yeah, I scrapped the whole robot thing because I don't think I can commit to the world building. Now Kaede is just a normal university student. He has an older sister and they both like to dress up in agey clothes. And the patches are now acne patches. Ruka does have acne on her forehead, but Kaede doesn't. He just wants to match his sister. Now we create a multiply layer to deepen the shadows. Multiply darkens and makes any color more saturated, so pick a slightly dull color for this. I usually use muted red or pink, and I applied it mostly on the edges of the drawing to give volume, and softly on the facial features to define them. Next, I'm using the overlay layer to add lighter and saturated colors, mostly around the eyes, cheeks, tip of the nose, and lips. Think of it like applying makeup to your characters. As with multiply, use muted colors because overlay will make them more saturated. Kaede and Ruka's hair is slightly pink at the bottom, so I'm using the overlay for it as well. Because their hair is quite dark, I use saturated pink instead of muted ones like I did for the skin. Don't forget to add the background colors on it too. In Ibispaint, there are several chain brushes, and for a free drawing app, they're quite good actually. I'm impressed. I'm using chain to color chain, that's a weird name, and draw chain necklaces in different sizes. I'm adding more shadows with multiply and soft highlights with an add layer. I will add more accessories. I think adding rings would look cool. Their fingers do look a bit lonely. The easiest way by far is to draw silhouettes first. Draw any shape of rings you want, then fill it with gray and add details. I will make a metal and jewelry study in future videos because they're very fun to draw and it adds cool details to your drawing. I made these diamond highlights on the siblings' hair just for fun. There is no deep lore or anything, and that's fine, you know. We can design our OCs however we want, even if adding things just because it looks cool. It's mainly for our own consumption anyway. Okay, now I will add a gradation map. I always use the blue-red combination. It also suits Kaede and Ruka's color scheme, but you can try to experiment with different gradients that works best for your drawing. Always duplicate your drawing before using the gradation map. I set it to soft light and lower the opacity. I duplicate the original drawing again and apply glitch on the bottom one. This is a really cool effect because it outlines your drawing but not with a boring straight outline. And as always, I sharpen the image with the unsharp mask filter. This is what we started with and this is the end result. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Unveil, link in the description, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye!